Lies, lies, and more lies. This is what the MAGA Republicans are doing as we head into Christmas and the New Year, as the American people are feeling the pain of Donald Trump's fraud and his disastrous economy. Trump puts his stooges on TV to lie. It's utterly pathetic, but this is who they are. You have his national economic advisor, Kevin Hassett, who many believe may be the new chairman of the Federal Reserve. He goes on MSNBC and he's asked, why did Donald Trump need to make up every fake thing imaginable during the speech that he gave in the national address? Well, why not just use the numbers that we all know are true? Watch what Hassett says. Let's play it.
We talked earlier in the show. Steve Ratner was here, helped us with a fact check. The president does have some good news to talk about the economy, gas prices, for instance. But why the need to constantly sort of exaggerate? Gas prices are $3 and not $2.50. The idea of suggesting that I think a lot of the impact of inflation. Yes, some progress made, but not as much as he says. Why not just present American people and say, hey, look, these are the facts. I can understand how you feel. Why the need to exaggerate?
I'd have to go back and look at the specific language, but and I hate coming back with questions for you guys, but the president, in order to make sure that everybody understood the facts and the facts were documented, spent a lot of time with our team, preparing slides that showed the data for what he was talking about in the speech. And in some networks, while he was speaking, they showed the slides, and in some networks they didn't. And I just thought that was kind of unusual. I was expecting, when I was flipping around, to just see the slides everywhere. Gosh, we spent so much more time on them.
The slides. Did you see the slides? I mean, what do you think, we're stupid? Even if there were slides, you lie about the slides. What are you talking about? It was like when Caroline Levitt's like, my number here says 2.5 average. That's what it says. And then you have Jamieson Greer, the lead trade representative. Here's what he said on CNBC about Trump lying about the $18 trillion or $23 trillion, whatever number he makes up on any given day that he says he's brought in because of tariffs. That's what Trump said in the speech. Mostly because of tariffs, we've brought in $18 trillion. We haven't even brought in $1 trillion in tariffs, and we still have rising debt and rising deficits. Anyway, here, play this clip.
One thing that I wanted to ask you about was the president spoke, obviously, to the American public last night and talked about the $18 trillion, I think was the number he used, of investment pledges made into the U.S. as part of some of these tariff transactions or tariff deals with various countries. And I think the American public wants to understand the math behind that, because $18 trillion is an extraordinary amount of money. You look at some of the countries that have made these pledges, it's, close to their entire GDP. Over what period of time should we anticipate these deals actually coming to fruition? And I should also just mention that Bloomberg had done an analysis of this and suggested that, in fact, there were closer to only really $7 trillion, which, by the way, is still an extraordinary number, but in terms of measurable deals that we should be thinking about.
Well, remember, the deals, they really have a couple parts to them. One is the investment headline numbers that you're talking about, which are really important. It's helping to reindustrialize America, and I'll talk a little bit about that. And the other part are what I'd call the pure trade issues, where they're opening our markets to us. They're taking their tariffs down. They're removing their non-tariff barriers. And on that part, a lot of that is already in progress or going through legislatures in foreign countries. On the investment piece, this past week, we saw a new zinc smelter be announced by a Korean company.
Okay, a bunch of word salad, the real numbers, the headline investment number, the fraud number, the made up fake number. And these countries have opened up their countries to us. We've never traded with Europe before. We've never traded with, what are you talking about? I want to bring in Democratic Congress member Dan Goldman. He used to be a former federal prosecutor as well, who's dealt with a bunch of frauds and put them in jail before becoming a member of Congress. I mean, look, Donald Trump's a convicted felon. He's someone who's bankrupted a lot of his entities. He's someone who's been found civilly liable for fraud. And he's turned our entire economy, it seems, into a massive Ponzi scheme and a fraud. And he's got all these stooges out there that talk to people every day and just lie. It's just so obvious. I mean, how do you deal with it? How do we fight back? How do you grapple with this?
Well, we've been grappling with it for quite some time, Ben. But I think where Donald Trump is going wrong here and is going to finally meet his match is that, unlike some of the other categories or issues that he lies about, such as immigration, where he says that everyone that they are arresting and deporting is a murderer or a rapist, when we actually know, at least in New York City, 70% of those who are arrested have no criminal background at all. But people don't feel that themselves. They don't know that because of their own life. With the economy, with affordability, with expenses, with grocery prices, with gas prices, with inflation, every American is feeling that every day. So he is just not going to be able to gaslight the American people about what they are dealing with directly every day as prices go up and as they are less able to make ends meet every single week.
I want to talk about some legislation that you've introduced as well. You mentioned immigration right there. Your district sits right in that area where you have that immigration center where, the ICE agents literally wait in the hallways. They wait outside. And when people are showing up, whether it's for asylum or going through the lawful process, though, they go and they snatch people and they disappear them. And oftentimes they just get lost and people don't know where their family members are. We've seen now Greg Bovino, who runs the Border Patrol for Donald Trump, who gives himself a weird title like Commander at Large or something. He goes to Chicago. He mocks the community. He's like, ho, 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 we're coming to get you these holidays. He's like a weird bad guy from like a Batman movie. And I saw him doing rock, paper, scissors, these are demented human beings. These are sick, demented humans who are out there, screwing with, human beings. And you see it firsthand. How are you fighting back against that?
Yeah, it's honestly, it's unconscionable. It is un-American. It is incredibly offensive to me and so many others to see this immigration dragnet, where in that big bill, they put $45 billion to ICE alone, just to perpetuate this immigration dragnet. And let's be real. These are people who are here lawfully trying to do it the right way, through asylum or other immigration claims. And they are appearing at court appearances as they have to. They are going for check-ins as they have to. And they're literally being snatched away while their cases remain open. Last week, we had Kristi Noem in front of us in the Homeland Security Committee. And I had the opportunity to question her. And I finally got her to admit that every time they deport someone with an open asylum case, that is breaking the law. And we will certainly be using that against her going forward, including when we take over the majority. Yesterday, we had a very good result in a court case that I and 11 of my colleagues filed to prevent the DHS, to prevent ICE from stopping us from conducting oversight of their detention facilities. You mentioned in my district, 26 Federal Plaza, there's a detention facility in that building right in downtown Manhattan that has already been found by a judge to violate the Constitution because of inhumane conditions. I have tried a number of times to get in there. I have been denied entrance. We filed a lawsuit and the judge ruled our way yesterday. And tomorrow, Friday, I will be going there to try to conduct oversight. And I've also introduced a number of bills to try to demask and unmask ICE officers and to try to prevent them from luring people lawfully here to their court appearances only to then arrest them and deport them.
So many Americans right now, because of this Trump economy, are struggling. Donald Trump says that affordability is a hoax and that everybody's doing great. They put out an odd CPI inflation report today that used 0% as what the inflation was for rent. And then they used the Black Friday sales as another metric to claim that that's what brought the goods and prices down. And that's what the Bureau of Labor Statistics, I guess, is doing. But while all of this is going on, what was announced today that Donald Trump's social media company is merging with a fusion energy research company that relies on the Department of Energy for grants and approvals. And as Trump's media company, in my opinion, has been failing, as evidenced by quarterly losses that keep being reported, they now do a energy fusion deal on things that actually have not been utilized. He's gutting solar energy and wind energy. And now his social media company is gained 33% in value. Like, it's just the biggest middle finger to the American public that while people are suffering, he does that.
It's absurd. And it's just a continuation of massive, rampant corruption. This guy is so clearly trying to follow the Vladimir Putin model of using the government to make money for himself, making sure that his allies are controlling the most important companies in the country, and that includes our media companies, doling out money to them by deregulating their industries, taking money from them in return to, for example, build the East Wing. And he is basically running a massive crypto scheme out of the White House. It is so beyond the bounds of law and the Constitution. But the Republicans are just happy to sit here and watch him do it. And it's getting closer and closer to that kind of Russian oligarchy that has led to Vladimir Putin taking over as a dictator. And I think that is exactly what Donald Trump is trying to do. That is his vision. And that is frankly why he is always taking Vladimir Putin's side, even though Putin illegally attacked Ukraine, a democratic ally of ours, and has been waging a illegal war against them for many years now.
You know, while all of this is going on, again, as the American people are saying, wait a minute, there's not going to be a vote on the Affordable Care Act subsidy extension, even though a discharge petition was signed because MAGA Mike Johnson sending everybody into vacation. I've been hearing these stories of people who have cancer and going through chemo and all of these things. Like literally, what do I do? And MAGA Mike's like, it's only 8% of America, 22 million people. Who cares? Like, but while that's going on, what they did do today, what Trump announced, is that he's renaming the Kennedy Center to the Trump Kennedy Center, which requires congressional authorization, but that's not going to stop him. And you know, your Republican colleagues are going to basically say, what a brilliant idea. That's the greatest thing to be doing for the American people right now. But it's just sick that the Trump Kennedy Center, I don't want to get lost in like, that doesn't necessarily impact people's lives the way ripping away healthcare is, but I think you have to view them collectively because this is what he's focused on while ripping away and destroying the things that matter to people.
And that's the point. That's the point. He's focused on renaming the Kennedy Center. He's focused on putting up these absurd photos and plaques in the White House to denigrate past Democratic presidents. Literally, he apparently dictated some of them. And what he's not focused on is the fact that 22 million Americans are going to see massive increases in their healthcare premiums to the point where several million of them will not be able to afford healthcare. There is a bill that must come to the House floor. It must come to the House floor by the beginning of January, but it could come today and it could go to the Senate for them to vote on it so that 22 million people don't see a premium hike increase that they will on January 1st if nothing is done before them. And what is Donald Trump doing? Renaming the Kennedy Center. And what is Mike Johnson doing? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. And that's really, I think, the point that you're making correctly, Ben, is that Donald Trump and the Republicans just don't care about the vast majority of Americans. They only care about their donors, their other oligarchs, their billionaire buddies who they're cutting taxes while taking healthcare and food stamps away from everybody else who needs them. And that is the story of this year. That is all Donald Trump has done, is to benefit his billionaire buddies while at the detriment and destruction of so many working families' lives.
And cover up a child sex trafficking ring and the Epstein files. I want to remind everybody also that you and I made a video back in May where I think Meidas was the first to exclusively break the letter that you sent to Attorney General Pam Bondi, where you detailed what you had heard at the time was the massive cover-up. And that was, I want to remind our audience that you were ahead of the game there before anybody was really kind of at the granular details that you laid out in that letter, breaking down what now we know was everything you said in that multi-page letter was 100% right. So with that as background for our audience, the files are supposed to be released on Friday. We know that MAGA is going to be doing anything they can in Trump to obstruct this thing. And so as a former federal prosecutor and now a member of Congress, walk us through what we expect to see when this doc dump happens. What's your prediction?
Well, if they were to release the full files with the appropriate redactions for victims, not for accomplices or adults who may be included in the photos, we should see a tremendous amount of material. We should see photographs, we should see videos, we should see reports of witness interviews. We should see the case origination documents to understand who in 2004 first provided the FBI with information, which we know was around the time that Donald Trump fell out with Jeffrey Epstein. And so we will learn about the entire investigation, including those who were not charged because the prosecutor determined that there was not enough evidence. What I am very worried about, though, Ben, is that we won't see all of those files, even though there is no legitimate reason to withhold them. And what I'm especially focused on is whether the Department of Justice uses this bogus order by Donald Trump to investigate Democrats associated with Jeffrey Epstein as if that is a new investigation that must be done. That investigation was part of the Epstein investigation. That Epstein investigation is now closed. It is a complete fig leaf for him to assert, or for Pam Bondi to assert, that there's an ongoing investigation. There is not. And the only reason there is because Donald Trump is trying to continue the cover-up of the Epstein files, even though Congress has passed a law that he signed that requires the Department of Justice to release all of the files. And so we'll have to look closely, but let's remember, there is no ongoing investigation that warrants the concealment of any of those documents.
Congressman Goldman, probably the last time we check in with you, at least before Christmas and the New Year's. Anything you want to say to our 6 million subscribers before we go?
Look, it's wonderful what you've done here, Ben, and to all of your subscribers, know that the Democrats are here working hard, doing everything that we can to make sure that we maintain our democracy and that we are helping working families. And I'm looking forward to next year and beyond, where we are going to be able to tax those billionaires, not cut taxes, so that we can pay for universal child care, so that we can pay for health care, so that we can lower rent prices, so that every American has the basic floor so that they can achieve the American dream. And that's what Democrats stand for. That's what we are going to be fighting for. And we're going to be onwards and upwards next year, heading into the November elections. And we're going to be putting both accountability and working families at the front of the platform.
Congressman Goldman, thanks as always.
Thank you, Ben.
Everybody hit subscribe. Let's get to 6 million subscribers.
Want to stay plugged in? Become a subscriber to our Substack at MeidasPlus.com. You'll get daily recaps from Ron Filipkowski, ad-free episodes of our podcast, and more exclusive content only available at MeidasPlus.com.